Welcome back to 15 Minutes With. I'm your host, Sam Dostler, and today we are excited to welcome Marc Bayram, the PGA head professional at Timberlin Golf Club in Berlin, Connecticut. He has been there since 2011, and today we are going to talk about Marc's impact on junior golf in the state and really throughout the region of New England. Marc was named the 2015 Connecticut PGA Section Youth Player Development Award winner, and in 2020 he earned the Connecticut PGA Section Teacher of the Year Award. With that, we'd like to welcome in Marc. Marc, welcome to 15 Minutes With.
Hey, Sam, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the show here.
Let's jump right into it, and let's start at the beginning for you. You've been the head pro now for over a decade at Timberlin, but how did you get into golf? How did you get into the business? And how did you end up at Timberlin?
Other than you're making me feel a little old with that decade talk, I got into the golf business after I graduated from St. Leo University down in Florida. This was in 2005. My college golf coach, Ray Sisbani, was a PGA member, and I wasn't exactly sure what direction I should go. He suggested I become a PGA pro and become an assistant pro down there in the North Florida section. So just really not knowing what to do, I said, okay, I'll do that. I got a job as an assistant pro at Plantation Palms Golf Club in Land O'Lakes, Florida. I also helped out with I was the assistant coach for the St. Leo University team at that time. And I enrolled in the PGA program. So that's kind of how I got my start. I backtracked up to Connecticut and worked at Shuttle Meadow Country Club for Tim Gavronski for 3 years before coming on board at Timberlin. But throughout my time, it took me about 3.5 years to attain my PGA membership to become a Class A professional. And I haven't really looked back ever since. I feel like it was a great decision for my career.
And one of those aspects of golf that you've really focused on since getting into the business is junior golf. You have a thriving program at Timberlin. What inspired you to get so involved in the junior game and really promote it?
So I grew up at a public golf course. I grew up at Stanley Golf Course playing and learning the game. Unfortunately, my family wasn't really able to afford golf lessons. So just kind of self-taught. And once I got into the business, I just had this huge appreciation for helping junior golfers, giving them an affordable resource to have for coaching, and just doing everything I could to help them and make it affordable. I've certainly been lucky that Timberlin Golf Course in the town of Berlin has always been supportive of junior golf and allows me to do so much of what I do to grow the game. But just in general, I really have a passion for coaching the youth golfers of all skill levels because they're going to be important 20 years from now, and hopefully still playing the game. And I will say, since having kids of my own, I definitely am all in junior golf. Not only do I want them to enjoy it, but their friends do as well. So just got to create the good environment for them to have fun.
Have you seen an influx? Golf has been booming since COVID. Has there been an influx of junior golfers since then, or has that sort of remained the same?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a direct correlation to COVID. I know that numbers have grown. So I guess we could say that maybe some kids took it up when they couldn't play other sports. But I think in general, parents these days feel golf's a very safe sport. They understand that golf is important in the business world and, at the professional level as well. So golf is going to be a game that their children are going to probably play for a lifetime. And there's so many programs now that you can start playing at such a young age that there's more access than there was when I was a kid to the golf courses and different programs. So golf is just a safe sport, and we know it's a game for a lifetime. Where other sports, sometimes once you get too old, you can't do it anymore.
We're talking with Marc Bayram on this edition of 15 Minutes With. He's the head professional at Timberlin Golf Club in Berlin. We're talking junior golf. And speaking of junior golf, Mark, you're not just involved at Timberland, you're also the tour director of the Under Armour Junior Tour New England. How did you get involved with them, and what does that role entail?
So my own kids, they played in the U.S. Kids Golf Tour. They played on it for a couple years, and Bob Sparks runs that tour. Great tour. Some of the junior golf parents were looking for additional playing opportunities in addition to playing U.S. Kids. The Under Armour Junior Tour is relatively new. They're a national tour, but there's local tours all over the country. And a family had approached me and asked, if I'd be interested. They knew I was a golf pro. They asked if I'd be interested in running the tour because they saw Bob Sparks do it. So I looked into it, and it did fit into my schedule. And fortunately, I was able to do it. And it was kind of a no-brainer for me because if anybody knows the golf business, we know that it's very time-consuming during the season. So this allowed me to spend some more time with my kids who also play, but also provide kids locally, an additional playing opportunity in addition to some of the other ones where they could qualify for a national event, the Under Armour National Championship. It's also for ages 6 to 18. So it's only 9 holes. So it's good for any aspiring high school player. And again, it gave me another opportunity to spend more time with my own children, as well as many of the kids that I coach, because there's probably about 30 or so of the 96 players that are from either Berlin or play at Timberland. So a lot of the kids that I coach are also playing the tour, which is nice to see.
You mentioned the kids that you coach, and one that we actually talked about recently, Reed Myers. We're recording this just a few days after the Masters wrapped up with John Rahm winning. But before that tournament got underway, Reed Myers from Berlin competed in the 2023 National Drive, Chip, and Putt finals at Augusta National. What is it like for you to see junior players that you work with go on and have success in the game?
That right there is the most rewarding part, is seeing players like Reed, and there's others as well who compete in events not only locally but try to compete nationally, and they work hard on their games. And I mean, it's just incredibly rewarding as a coach to see the kids you're training actually putting in the time to get better. And success is great. Making it there is awesome, and I couldn't be more proud of Reed. A little funny story about that. His older brother Brennan, I'll give him a shout out. He's already been on national TV playing with the PGA Junior League Team Connecticut over the years. So Reed was out on that trip last year with this was after he qualified with his brother and his family, and he saw Tony Finau at PGA Junior League Nationals, and he asked Tony if he was playing in the Masters, and Tony said yes. And then Reed says, "Well, I'll see you there because I'm playing too." So it was just kind of a funny little thing there, and that's the type of personality that kid has. But just all the junior golfers that I coach, and I see others running the Under Armour tour. I see others that others coach as well. Seeing them really work hard in their game and seeing them get better is probably the most rewarding thing we see as coaches, and that really make us feel good and motivate us to do bigger and better.
You mentioned that you have two young kids yourself, and of course you work with a lot of other kids. What's your philosophy? How do you go about teaching them and helping them grow their game?
Well, one thing I learned very early on was that sometimes you become dad and not coach. So, my oldest, he I could tell right away that he would treat me more like dad than coach when I try to help him. So I sent him to see my good friend Jeff Del Rosso for lessons, and it was the best decision I could have made as a parent. Just because even though I know what I'm talking about, I can help, and I help many of his friends. When you're the parent, things change a little bit, and it's best to keep their love for the game rather than trying to control it too much. If that means sending them to a coach and kind of staying out of the way, so be it. I mean, every child is different. My youngest, he is a little different where he wants to listen to me. I think he likes the attention. So he wants help from me. So it's just different with each child. And when you feel like you're starting to become more dad or parent than coach or helping, and they start not having fun, then it's time to take a step back, put it in the hands of somebody who's going to help that fun factor for your children. So just having kids of my own, I really saw the perspective of being parent versus coach.
And what about with the other juniors you work with? How do you go about approaching them? I remember when I was talking with the Myers for ahead of their appearance down at Augusta National, they said fun is always a big part of what you do. How do you incorporate that in and keep things fun, but also help everyone enjoy the game?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy has always been to keep things light. Keep that fun factor for them. High fives, knuckles, when you hit good shots. But also, I always try to stress getting my point across with some of the basic fundamentals with junior golfers, and really, you don't have to get too detailed. Um, what I would recommend for coaches, or any sort of advice I would give coaches, is when you're coaching anybody, even under the age of maybe 12, when you give a lesson, try not to go over more than one or two things. I think you really just hammer home one thing, like club face awareness, or your club's path, or your posture alignment, but just one thing, because you don't want the junior golfer to get confused. You don't want them to kind of get lost to where they're not paying attention anymore. So just hammer home one thing. That's always been my philosophy with junior golfers. But in terms of having fun, I mean, it's all about the environment you create. So any sort of program that I have, I'm fortunate to have assistants that know how to get the kids excited and know how to keep the energy levels up, because that's just important. Children want high energy. So the environment you create at your golf courses as a coach is super important to your junior golf program success.
We're talking with Marc Bayram. He's the head professional at Timberlin Golf Club in Berlin, Connecticut. Before we get onto our last few questions, we've talked a lot about juniors that are already involved in the game. But if a junior player, an aspiring junior player, was listening to this, or their parents, how would you tell them to go about, and they want to get involved in the game, how would you tell them to go about doing that? Because it, just like any sport, it can be a bit nerve-wracking to step into something that you don't have experience with. So how would you tell them to bridge that gap and get involved?
So, I mean, as a parent, it's important that you research different programs in your area. I would say PGA Junior League to me is the best program for all skill levels. Um, Mainly ages, we'll just say 7 or 8 is where you can start to 17. I mean, they have a 17 and under program as well. But pgajuniorleague.com will be a good resource to go to, and you can see what's available in your area. If you want to go a little further, you can look, on the websites of each golf course that's near you, see what sort of junior programs they have. My philosophy with all skill levels, I have a program similar to Operation 36, which I have always felt is a great way to learn the game. And it's kind of from the green backwards, where you have to shoot 36 or lower from a certain yardage. I always think that's a great starting point for any beginner, but also an experienced player can always benefit from short game and getting better at that. So that's another. We have one at Timberlin called Future Stars Academy that is ages 5 to 15, and it's basically that program where we start from the green backwards, and what we see is the friendships being built more than anything else, which is great. If you want your child to play competitively and they already have some experience, there's programs for that as well. And I would assume that maybe one-on-one coaching would be better for that. But if you're trying to let your kids have fun and make new friends, which I think is super important as a coach, programs like PGA Junior League are great for bringing all skill levels together and getting them to work together as a team. So that
Switching
would be a great starting point for any parent looking to get their child into junior golf.
Switching gears a little bit, you play a lot of competitive golf yourself. You mentioned already that you played in college. You've been a regular member of the PGA Julio Spurros Challenge Cup team. Tell us a little bit about your playing career, and then also, how does playing competitively yourself help when it comes to teaching?
Yeah, so I've always loved to compete since my junior golf days, and I've played in college at a high level at St. Leo University. And since then, I try to play in as many Connecticut PGA events as I can. Um, definitely don't get the time to put in as I wish, but I think being a coach and especially coaching competitive players, I feel like you need to practice, what you preach. And I feel like my own game, I need I need to make sure that is my own game. I can still compete at a high level, at least locally. And I think that's super important for coaching competitive players, especially. Um, one, I also don't want my own kids to beat me, and also all the kids up at Timberlin, like Reed Myers and such. I always talk some smack and make sure they know they can't beat me yet. But someday soon, I'm sure they will.
Yeah, you got to get them
But
now, right?
yeah, I got to get them now, and I got to get my words in now because I know they're coming to an end at some point. But I've always felt strongly that if you're going to coach the game and you're going to have the title of pro, you need to show some credibility. So to me, that's still important in my industry, and I just try to practice what I preach.
And Mark, we'll get you out on this one. The 2023 season still, despite the weather, as we record on nearly a 90-degree day here in the middle of April, despite the weather, still very early in the season. What are you most excited for this year?
Yeah, I'm just excited for another great season. It's hard to believe I'm in my 13th season at Timberlin Golf Course, but my roles changed slightly so I can focus a little bit more on player development. So, my goal for Timberlin would be to have our junior programs better than ever, bigger and better than ever, and really just continue to try to grow the game because that's what we do as golf pros. I know it's cliche, but that's our job, and if we don't do it, nobody plays. So I think that that is super important. Another goal for the year would be to beat the amateurs in the Challenge Cup because they keep beating us every year, and I think that Team Connecticut PGA has had enough. So that would be another goal. But past that, I mean, just looking forward to a great golf season in general.
He has been Marc Bayram, the head professional at Timberlin Golf Club in Berlin, Connecticut. Mark, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to join us.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thanks for all you do.
Once again, Marc Bayram, the head professional at Timberlin Golf Club. You have been listening to 15 Minutes With, and I've been your host, Sam Dostler. Thanks as always for listening.